Hello and welcome to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read books and other words too. I'm Lily.
And I'm Sarah, and I'm delighted to welcome Atlin Merrick, author and commissioning editor at Improbable Press, onto the podcast today to chat with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Met you both at Worldcon, which we were just talking about being an entire delight. So thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on to talk.
Well, we have a great list of conversation topics today, but first our introduction questions. What's something great that happened this week?
It actually happened this morning. I have a friend. We have different fandoms, though we met in a central one, but now we have different fandoms. So we created a sort of third fandom to enjoy together. And in our DMs, we like what we call snowball, and we come up with so many ideas that I'm like, why aren't we putting this on AO3? But it's for us. And we just snowballed so funny today that I'm literally like typing away laughing. So to me, that's when you have writer friends and or fandom friends, generally they can be both. There's just so much sort of crazy joy. So I had some crazy joy this morning.
That's wonderful.
That is delightful. I love that.
Snowballing, that's what we call it, and it really feels like that. They add something, I add something, they add something.
That's the best kind of collaboration.
Yes. You're both like, and like little kids. And instead of, no, but how I see it, no, this is the yes and, which is so fun.
Sarah?
My good thing is I went to the theater on Thursday and really enjoyed the play that I saw, which was nice.
Can we ask what play?
Yeah, it was called How Shakespeare Saved My Life at the Berkeley Rep by Jacob Ming Trent, I think was the playwright and actor's name. It was a one-man show, autobiographical, semi-autobiographical, I think mostly just fully autobiographical, about his experiences as a child and growing up. And really fantastic. I know that he's touring, I think he said Chicago, DC, and New York at least. And so if you're anywhere around there and can go see it, I would highly recommend it.
Cool.
That's right. And you haven't loved the last couple of plays you went to see, so it's a nice change.
Yeah, that was partly why this was particularly a good thing, because the things that I've seen so far this season have not all been as enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. I did a degree in London that had us seeing a lot of plays, even at like the National Theatre and all that. And that happens a lot, doesn't it?
It can. I mean, there's a lot of really good theater out there, but as with books, not everything is for every person.
Yes.
And sometimes things are also just bad.
Yes. And then you wonder, who do you have something on?
Yes.
Well, my good thing is a little lame, but I just had a really good day at work yesterday. Yay. It's very simple, but a lot of things, like projects I've been working really hard on, like all paid off on the same day, which was just a nice feeling.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever listened to Cabin Pressure, but John Finnemore has a character basically saying, eating the perfect apple, settling into a perfectly temperatured tub. There's loads of those moments. Mm-hmm. There is not, on the hillside for a sunset with your one true love moments very often. So it's lovely to have just a great day at work because, those are more common.
Mm-hmm. And deserve to be celebrated.
And they don't always happen.
That's also true.
Yeah, but that one true love on a hillside, those are really rare.
Yeah.
So
who has time to find all those hills?
Yeah. Yes.
What is everyone drinking today?
Me, coffee. Tea and coffee are my friends.
Nice.
I've got a jasmine green tea.
Lovely. Atlin, are you a black coffee drinker or do you doctor it up?
It's black. When I go out, I might get a latte because I can't make a latte at home.
Yeah.
But I do love black, punch me in the face coffee.
Yeah. Wonderful. I am drinking sparkling cherry juice. It's the bottle said pomegranate, but I tasted it and was like, this is not pomegranate. And you look at the ingredients and it's the first one is cherry. So I was like, okay. That makes sense.
Is that your usual vibe, or is it, incubating vibe for?
Yes, I am not drinking alcohol at the moment due to powers, I guess not beyond my control technically, but due to being pregnant. But I have been very well hydrated lately, so that's an upside.
Yes.
And has anyone read anything good lately? I will start with, I've been buried under podcast reading. The book we're reading for this week is very long and has some very dense technical, like, science conversations in it. So that has been all I have done.
So what I've been reading is a lot of nonfiction lately, and the one that's kind of doing my head in is called Fluke by Brian Klaas, and the subtitle is Chance, Chaos, and Why Everything We Do Matters. And it basically is what it says on the tin. There is nothing the smallest of us can do that doesn't affect someone else, and they affect someone else, and so on. And
that sounds relevant to things happening in the world right now.
Yes, there's so many examples in there, and you're like, okay, I can swear. You're like, motherfucker, what? Literally, some small thing that happened 20 years ago changed what city was bombed with the first bombs dropped. Why Hiroshima was bombed instead of who was supposed to be bombed, Kyoto.
Wow.
And it was one guy's really good vacation 20 years previous.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and he was nobody, nobody in terms of, not president of some country or whatever. So anyway, it's fascinating books.
Similarly to Lily, I have been stuck in our next podcast read, which has a lot of very dense science discussion that, quite frankly, goes a little bit over my head. I am not a scientist, and so my eyes do glaze over just a little bit when they start getting into the weeds about some of the things they're discussing.
Is it story necessary, or is it I'm showing off?
It feels like the author's special interest. So the author has a PhD, and so I don't think he realizes how over everyone's head it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the author understands this very clearly and kind of assumes that everyone else will too.
Right. Now I wonder who edited the book.
It was self-published, and I'm not sure he had an editor.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can tell. But speaking of editing,
yes,
Atlin, you are an editor at Improbable Press.
Yes.
How long have you been with them? How long have you been editing?
I've been editing for Improbable Press since it was born. The person who originally started it said, here. And so 11 years. But before that, I worked for WebMD, and I was an editor there. So I went from nonfiction, health content to genre fiction, essentially. We started as Sherlock Holmes publisher and then went into basically genre stuff, speculative fiction mostly. So, yeah. So well over 20 years as an editor and 11 with Improbable.
Is editing something that you intended to be your career from the start, or did you just kind of fall into this role at WebMD?
I fell into it at WebMD, and I really, really like it. However, every editor I've personally talked with, editing for some reason will kneecap your writing. Not because you over edit yourself, but because it completely turns on a different brain, and it's very hard to get that brain back. Mm-hmm. Again, not because you're self-editing too much, but I don't know. You went down one path, so now you have to traverse all the way back to get back onto the writing path. So
I wonder if it's something because you're so focused as an editor, you're so focused on the technical side, it's harder to turn on that creative side or turn back on that creative side.
I would love to know what it is, because if you enjoy both, it's a little bit upsetting to not get to do both, but and you know, you do both. You just don't do them as well as you might hope, at least in my experience talking to other editors. And hence, I guess, sometimes fan fiction, because it gives you a mental freedom to still write your best, but nobody's over there, over your shoulder watching. So you can just like shake off things and get back into the flow.
Yeah. That is very justifying to me. My degree is in writing, and I write when I can, but I specifically chose a career that has nothing to do with that, because I knew if I was writing for my day job, I would not have any energy left to do it for myself. Yeah.
I have the energy to write. I just don't, if I like with WebMD, short story, WebMD, occasionally I would be writing fic while I was like maybe editing an article. And I would have to make sure I was sending the correct thing back. Because if I sent Sherlock porn to my editor, that's not good.
Yeah.
But editing, for me, it's editing. I can see how it would be definitely writing and then writing. And at this point, I'm ready to be like, okay, I want to work at the bakery up the street. Something completely different. So I feel you, Lily.
What has changed about the industry since you've started?
This sort of segues into a question you have later. I would say, for me personally, because I run a small press, so there's certain things we're just not going to see as much. But I would say AI, but not as directly as you might think for us. But to me, the big change is AI in the overall world of publishing. And the grievous acceptance of fan fiction tropes to market books, but only certain kinds.
Yeah.
They censor heterosexual white people usually. It's those things are different.
Yeah, the rise of what I consider like tag marketing, right? Like using what I think of as fan fiction tags in marketing content has been really strange to see. Like, part of me is like, oh, you guys aren't allowed to know about this.
and it's the fact that they know, but then that they're using it in a way that it's kind of icky. You know, it's like you're using it to use people's almost emotions to get them, whether it's pretty applicable or not. And again, it does tend to be used to center stories that are not inclusive.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that it's interesting also the increase in published books that were previously fan fiction. And I think that also, to your point, Atlin, that also tends to be, you know, white heteronormative romances that get pulled like that.
And there's a really great article. I didn't read it. I can find it if you're curious, but it's a really great article that I read that listed some of the current turned from fanfic stories. And depressingly, they really centered on dom sub stuff where it was always the woman who was submissive. Oh, sure, she's a high-powered attorney, except at night when he dominates her so wonderfully, and on and on. In other words, it's just more of the same, only with a slightly different wrapping, you know, tags and fanfic, calling it generated from fanfic. But it's traditional publishing that is not giving us anything new.
Not pushing the envelope.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned the changes that AI have brought to the industry. What have you seen personally, just out of curiosity? Are you getting a lot of submissions that look suspicious?
Well, I was thinking about that this morning. Historically, maybe twice, 3 times a year, I get batshit queries, like absolutely batshit stuff. And up until recently, I would have said, okay, these are just batshit people. But now I wonder, was some of it AI? I know AI is fairly recent, like the domination of it. So it really doesn't cover years worth of batshit. Mm-hmm. But my most recent one, first, they tend to be in all caps. They tend to be in multiple fonts and or colors. So right there, you're already like, what is happening here? But this most recent one said, I am a marketing genius with over 100 million followers across social medias. I am this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, you are not any of those things. That's not possible. And so now I wonder if it's maybe going to become more, because AI goes sort of with, as we know, it goes with the dominant voice, which is privileged male. Mm-hmm. And all these really weird ones have come from male identified names and with these grandiose statements of I am, and you should get on this before someone else does. So that's what I've seen in terms of AI. I've not seen stories, sent to me that are like, I've seen bad stories and I can tell you why those were bad, but not anything that felt as bonkers as some of these queries. And I mean, I save these queries. I'm like, is this a language issue? Like, are you thinking this is how you address people? I don't know. The multiple fonts, colors, and all caps signifies to me, no, it's not a language barrier. It is a
very confident individual.
Or something.
Yes, or something. Yeah. I'm going to go with that, Sarah. It's or something.
That's fun. We've been getting, I would say just in the last month or two, review requests that are very, very clearly all written with the same AI prompt or something. Like they have the same cadence. They all start with getting the name of our podcast slightly wrong. And then it will give I really liked your most recent episode about X, Y, and Z, which in the past, I would have loved a review request that sounded like they actually listened to the podcast. Mm-hmm. But I kind of don't think that's the case here.
Right. Yeah. But they actually give you the name. Is it the name you published the podcast under?
Well, usually the name is Fiction Fans Podcast, and then we have the subtitle catchphrase, we read books in other words too. And they usually jumble it a little bit. They'll get half of the subtitle, but not the whole thing. Okay. Which is just either you would not include that or you'd include the whole thing.
Right. Okay, I thought you were saying I enjoyed your recent podcast and specifically, we're talking to thus and so, and they quoted that.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, if it's just a generic your podcast and then
they will often say a sentence about a recent episode that does is actually about the episode, but is clearly pulled from the episode description.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It's
pretty obvious.
Yeah.
They also usually get your name wrong, Lily.
Yeah, because I spell my name with 3 L's, I guess. The double L in the middle.
Right.
And that's just, I give up. I mean, if it's funny, my bar has lowered for when I think a real person is talking to me. I'm like, well, at least you're a human being.
Yeah. I get Mr. Atlin all the time because Atlin was a name I thought I made up. And it turns out there's an Atlin Lake in Canada or something, but it's not gendered enough, apparently. So as soon as somebody's like, Mr. Atlin, I'm like, well, you didn't go to the website, did you?
Yeah.
Oh. No.
So we've talked a little bit about what has changed in the industry since you started. Is there anything that hasn't changed, do you think?
I'm going to put my hands in a little clappy mode here again. Oh, yes. This is the thing I will talk about until the heat death of the sun. The thing that hasn't changed, to my perception, is writers who desperately want to publish, as we all do, but who are not putting in the barest effort of reading submission guidelines. Mm-hmm. please read the submission guidelines. If it's an anthology call for submissions, it's no more than like 250 words. It's very short. If it's a publisher's generic submission guidelines, maybe it's 700 words. But the point is, the thing that hasn't changed is 70% of writers will not read the submission guidelines. And so they will get rejected and rejected and rejected. And they don't have to if they would just read the submission guidelines and believe them. Mm-hmm. If we say, send us werewolves, but no vampires, please, and you read that, but you also send us a vampire, we said, none, please. We even said, please. But so read them and believe them. But I think that's just human nature, maybe, and that may never change.
Yeah, we run a literary magazine or a fanzine, and we definitely run into that when we open submissions where we will say what we're looking for and like the length and all of that, and just get submissions that don't clearly, like, they didn't bother to read any of that.
They didn't bother to read it, or they thought they were special.
Yes.
And it's like, you actually aren't. You cannot be. Everybody can't be special. And 70% of you maybe are thinking you're special. So that means the 30% who actually listened get the attention. It's really, really simple. So I'm sorry you experienced that too, but does it drive you mental?
It does. I mean, we only open up submissions twice a year, and we're not doing it this year because Lily is pregnant. So I don't think we have to deal with it quite as much, but it is always frustrating, when we do have submissions open.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be such a joy. Like, we did some cryptid books. I'm in love with those books because I love cryptids. And we opened up the submissions and we got 470 stories. That's, if you love the topic, that's like such an abundance. But, this was a case where no werewolves, no vampires. Here's my werewolves, here's my vampires, but a bunch of other things. And it's so delightful to get the stuff you were hoping. Mm-hmm. But then there's like the 300 stories you can't possibly use because they didn't listen, or however many. We tend to have really huge submission windows, because I love the abundance. But, even getting just 20 stories or 20 responses to your call for submissions, and, 13 of them are not what you asked for. Like,
well, and it also slows down the process, because you still have to read at least a little bit to figure out that this is not what you asked for.
Right. Yeah.
Beyond actually reading the submission guidelines, do you have any recommendations or advice for people who are submitting their work?
First, read the submission guidelines, believe them. That will put you so far ahead of the pack. What will put you even further is if you bring humor. If you feel natural doing it, write a humorous story. Because of those 470 cryptid stories we got, I'd say 450 are quite serious. Because that's what humans tend to do. I have a big thought. Here's my big thought told via a cryptid. And those 20 stories that, range in making you laugh, you're like, breath of fresh air, to put between those serious stories. So for me, if you're submitting open call for submissions, even if it's your novel, if it's natural to you to write humor, do that, because most editors probably don't see enough of it.
Interesting. Do you think that's a genre thing because you're in the speculative fiction space, or?
No, because we've approached, over the years, we kind of dialed this back because it doesn't super work well. we've approached fanfic writers who had great, funny stories and said, do you have, an original book in you? You can come, write along this theme. That's fine. And they'll take their humorous voice and they will go completely dead serious.
Interesting.
And I think that's what we've been fed so much what literature is, that they think they're going to write literature and literature has to be dour.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
I think it's what we've thought real writers do.
Yeah, which is fascinating because when I think of like what media do I tend to consume, it tends to be what makes me laugh.
And even if it's not the full thing,
Yeah.
you're reading along and then you're like, oh my God, I got to remember that. I got to tell, my husband, my wife, my whomever, this great line that just punched me out of nowhere. We've got a book that's quite serious, but one of the writers just keeps dropping these hysterical moments. And that's what life is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I would definitely say, if you can write humor in your novel, in your short story, that will put you as part of 5% of writers.
So again, besides not reading submission guidelines,
That's
what are
number one.
Yeah, that's number one. What are like the top 3 mistakes you see people make when submitting?
I have another one. Every editor, I attended an editorial talk at, I think it was Geek Girl Con, because I wanted to see what this editor, their experience was. And she had much the same, but she did veer in some things. So every editor will give you different answers. But another huge mistake, 2 of them I'll say, is rudeness. Astonishing to me how rude some writers, especially unpublished writers, can be. And then the other thing is arguing about editing. Not about the edits, about editing at all.
Like arguing that, oh, my book is perfect and doesn't need any editing.
Yes, we had a book withdrawn because we were like, well, it kind of leans heavily on the interior of the character, and the romance that it's meant to be about is sort of left in the dust. Can we swap that? More about the romance and the mystery and less internal. And they withdrew their book.
Wow.
I don't know what they thought publishing is, but apparently not that. But that's when you're already down the line. The rudeness is a surprise, and it comes as early as the query letters. So those are 2 things. Please follow the guidelines and don't be rude. This is a job interview after all. Mm-hmm. And I can go a little bit more into the why people might be rude, but I think that's actually, that is the question. If you're editing side collection, I will just say that a friend conveyed to me why writers are rude. I never thought of it, is because they're experiencing anxiety. They don't know what they don't know, so it makes them very defensive. And if you say something to a defensive person, they will lash out. So especially brand new writers can tend toward that. Well, why are you asking that? You said you would accept. They're hard to talk to because they think they're on the back foot. Mm-hmm. So your anxiety is real. Talk with your friend. Pretend you're on a job interview with the editor. You cannot yell at them when they're being professional. You have to be professional.
That's a great point, though, about people, feeling out of their depth and being unsure. Could you give us just like a high-level overview of what the process is actually like, from submission to publication?
High level is you're going to be edited simply because what's in your head is so clear to you. But all of us, including me, including every editor I know, leave shit out. We think it's in the story, but it's in our heart. So when the editor, it starts with the query. I'd like to submit thus and so. And you reply, I'm sorry, we don't take thus and so, then how dare you? I'm trying to rewind and go back to the beginning. People will take a call for submissions and share it with their friends. They'll put it on websites, including on horror websites, which we do not publish. And so we had a query. Here's my horror novel. Here's this, here's that. And I said, thank you. I'm sorry, we don't publish horror. How very fucking dare you put it up on a horror website then? And I said, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. Somebody else did. But now your name will stick in my head because you immediately got upset and unprofessional. But then, okay, fine. Let's just say that didn't happen and I accept your story. We're going to edit it. Nobody is not edited. I mean, maybe, I was going to say name some names, but they are such contentious writers now. But the high-level writers might have a book that goes unedited and the reader will know because it's garbage and you can see it's garbage. But otherwise, everybody is edited. So deal with that. And your editor should be professional and say, here's what we propose. If they insist, then they're not if they insist and don't listen to you, they're not your editor. You know, they're peeing in your book so it smells like them, you know. But otherwise, it's give and take, explain, discuss, add this here, and it'll be a little clearer. And then the other thing that folks don't seem to understand is you are part of a queue. It's almost always going to be 2 years until you're published. Not because it takes us that long, but because other books are in front of you. And we've had writers rage quit for that reason too. You know, you're not first, you know? So if you were Nora Roberts / J.D. Robb, same person, and she drops into your asks and, you know, says, here's my short story. Do you think you want to publish it? Well, she is first. I'm sorry, she's first. But failing that, really no one is first. You're just going to be part of a process, and folks don't seem to understand that they will be edited, that they can have questions and strong feelings about what they will and won't change, but to work together, we do the editing together, and then you wait. So that's the overview.
I think people tend to forget how collaborative of a process it is, and also just how many submissions like presses get. They are not the only one submitting a work, and you can't accept everything. I mean, you might want to, but you have limited time, limited funds. Like sometimes authors have to get a rejection not for any reason related to the quality of their work, but just because you only have space for 10 stories or whatever.
Yes. You know, that's why for me as an editor, I always want to encourage, if I'm rejecting and it was genuinely a great story, I'm like, hey, go over here and submit, or, you know, find another call that this fits because I love this story, but we could only have so many Loch Ness Monster stories, you know, or I don't know, Sherlock Holmes as a child stories. And we've already got, you know, 2 of them. So your voice is magic. Go and share it. Because, yeah, we can't do it all.
I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this question. I'm just going to go for it. Should an author always believe platitudes in a rejection? Or is there a chance that it's just to be kind?
I really don't know of too many editors. I don't know of any editors who, to use, I think, a very New York phrase, who are going to blow smoke up your skirt. They're not going to tend to be kind unless they mean it, because otherwise, this sounds obnoxious, the writer's just going to turn around and pepper you with more. Yeah. And if they're not good, you do not want that. So you don't tend to, I don't and I don't know of other editors who tend to compliment and not mean it. So no?
Yeah. I thought that was the answer, but actually, speaking of things I think I know the answer to, I've heard worries of writers that their work will be stolen if they submit it, that it will be taken and someone else's name will get put on it. Has that ever happened in the history of ever?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
The reason is because that takes a lot of work. Why would I steal, even like, let's just say it was a magically good story. Why would I steal it? Whose name am I going to put on it? Because I have my own voice. And unless you imitated my voice, it doesn't sound like me. So there's no win in stealing somebody's work. There really isn't. There's just no win. In a small, but there may be in a big press. I don't know. You steal it and you give it to somebody else who you already work with. But in a small press, there's no upside. There is literally no way we're going to make money out of stealing it as opposed to attributing it. So it hasn't happened in the history of ever, so far as I know.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for independent authors who are like looking to work with an editor and trying to filter for an editor they'll work well with?
I was really thinking about this because my editor is pretty much my best friend, but I met her through writing and editing. So I already know she's a magical editor and that she likes my writing. So there's a difference between an editor who just... Anyway, yes, the answer is talk to people, if you can, about an editor they've worked with. Even if it was just, I published a short story with this press, and they were so easy. They fixed a thing I didn't even know was wrong. That's all you need to know. Approach that press and say, hey, does any one of you do, freelance? So I would much more suggest trying to find an editor that route or meeting them at a convention than to just blindly be like, well, this person says they edit, because you don't really know their style. You don't know what they tend to edit. And if they don't edit hard sci-fi, for example, like you're a self-published person, if they don't edit hard sci-fi, they're going to leave it all a mess and then just edit the things that they do know. So you didn't really pay for something useful. So yes, go through friends, like with most of everything. Go through friends if you can.
Absolutely.
If you're looking for an editor and you found like an editor's website looks good, they say they edit the genre, and like then asking them for a client reference before you hire them, like do you think there's any value in that? Would an editor put you in touch with former happy clients?
If they don't, I would wonder why. It's like anything else, a plumber, a house painter. I want to talk to people who worked with you. And if you don't want to share that, I do wonder why. So yeah, I would definitely say, oh, great, you edit Australian mysteries. Do you have any Aussies that, that you've worked with? Oh, yes, A and Q. One of them is an award winner, like, wouldn't you want to sort of tout yourself that way? So I think, Sarah, yes.
Yeah.
There'd be nothing wrong with asking for a client or two to recommend you. But if you can go to cons, that is also, I think, you get to see them. You get to hear them. You get to, get warm fuzzies or hell knows from them.
Yeah. Is there something that would surprise a writer about editing or being an editor?
To return to, if you're polite, you'll stand out. And the other thing, which seems the reason some people sometimes are rude, is because they think they can't ask questions. So as a writer, please be pleasantly surprised by an editor telling you, ask your questions. None of them are dumb. Ask them kindly. That's it. We want to answer your dumbest question. I don't know what editing means. What does it mean you're going to edit my book? Ask that. Okay, how long does that take? Why is it 2 years? We'd much rather you know than get halfway through the process and then you start a list of demands. And I can tell you about at least one writer who had a list of demands after their very first book, and we never worked with them again.
Was it a bowl of only green M&Ms or even crazier than that?
It was crazier than that. And I actually read about, I think it was Pearl Jam, the reason they have something like that in their contract is because they want to see if you read the contract.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't get to that one silly bit, that means you didn't read, we need the stage set up this way. We need the amps, secured this way. So it means our safety is at risk now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was the green M&M thing is actually kind of relevant, but this writer's list of demands was special.
Not relevant.
Yeah.
They thought they were, but I don't know how.
Transitioning a little bit to more of the writing side, since you are also an author, you've written a collection of short stories that are centered around the meeting of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
One day I said something about there's no chance in a fic or something. There's no author note. There's no world in which these two wouldn't have met. And somebody said, can you give me a for instance? And I've since written like 120 other meetings for them. 70 are in the book, so there's still 50 I need to put together. It's just a fascinating idea for any characters you love. Absolutely stunning for characters you love. How else might those two have met? How else is feasible with those temperaments? It's such a good exercise for the class. You already love them. And so it's just somebody gives you this idea and then you're like, and you already know they met. You already know that they vibed. So how else? I don't know. It's just a very delightful thing to ask yourself about your own loves or even your own original characters. How else could this story have started?
Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think that's one of the joys of fan fiction is imagining all of these what ifs. Mm-hmm. And that's why fan fiction there's so much of it. Mm-hmm. Because we all like reading about, our favorite characters in different situations that don't necessarily come up in whatever their original property was.
Right. I mean, it happens in traditional stuff too. We had Bram Stoker's vampires, and nobody stopped writing vampires since then. I know they existed before him, but he's made it happen, sort of. We still write endless vampire stories. We still publish the big five, endless Sherlock Holmes stories. We all like our AU,
Yeah.
our bookshop AU, our coffee shop AU. Traditional publishing loves it just as much. The what if.
Mm-hmm. I have a very short, hopefully charming, funny story about your collection. I started reading it somewhat recently, but I had purchased it several months before and completely forgotten the concept of it. So when I got to the second story, I was very confused. I was going back and forth, trying to figure out the timeline, and then I was like, oh!
Was this the day they met or the night they met?
I think it was the night they
Okay, those are romances.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, see, I think that's even more confusing than the day they met, which is BFFs, stories, because they're very divergent, but in the romance stuff, it's, Sorry.
No, I have a bad habit of not reading the backs of books before I read the book, which is usually fine, but sometimes leads to hilarious things like that, where I get very confused.
I read a fanfic, a novel-length fanfic, where Sherlock Holmes was blind, okay? And when I started reading a different story, like a month later, I was like, why isn't he blind? What is going on? Yeah.
Yeah.
So not quite the same, but the same.
Yeah. So, what are some of the differences between writing fan fiction of a work in the public domain that you can publish, like Sherlock Holmes, versus writing what we're going to call just for fun fan fiction?
I'm not sure there's a difference unless you started writing the Sherlock thing with an idea that you wanted to publish it. And I don't know that people do that. Like at the end, they may find, oh, people really like this, you know, and then they go and, you know, scrub it and try and publish it. But for me, my perception, there's no difference. We all just write in this delicious pool of existing IP, and occasionally we're like, huh, with the idea.
We've talked a little bit about this already, so you might not have a further expansion to this question. But what draws you to writing fan fiction?
I can put my shoulders down, you know, like writing to a submission guideline is somewhat constrained. You have to please somebody else, and that's as it should be. When I write fan fiction, I have to please me. I can just flap around in the pool and scream across the pool, hey, look at this! And somebody swims over or they don't. You know, so it's just a little bit more freeing. Not that writing towards something conventional isn't freeing, because hopefully you like this. You know, don't write if you don't like it. Don't write to be famous. Don't write to be successful, because it's a shit way to make a living unless you like it.
Sometimes I see that people have an impression that fan fiction is a recent phenomenon, but it's been getting published for eternities. Does it feel like the general perception of fan fiction has changed over the years or more recently?
More recently, yes. Now we have, you know, the big five saying, hey, bring your scrubbed work to us. You know, and it's not because they like it. They just think it's a foregone conclusion, and it's easy for them then. So the article that I read that I referenced a little while ago even talks about some of these works not getting edited from the bigger publishers. And so, yes, the perception is we can make money off of it. It's never not been. It's never not been. I have an essay in the book Spark about fan fiction, and it delineates story after writer who either talks about having written fic or clearly parallels, like Star Wars to the power of 10 parallels Dune in so many ways. Like straight out, boom, here's that trope, boom, here's that trope. So fanfic has been done forever. There was a woman who, I think it was in the 1780s or something, wrote to a writer. She said, I love the book, but you need to lean onto the romance in the next book. And he is like, and she's like, well, then I'll do it. And she published it, you know, so fanfic has been forever.
I do kind of wonder, though, about some of the legal implications of books these days that are advertising openly that they were once fan fiction. Like, I know that there were recently a couple of books that were previously Harry Potter fan fiction.
And we can say alchemized, I think.
and just like some of the marketing was around how they were previously fan fiction.
Right.
And that seems to me to be really murky territory.
I wonder if you scrub it enough, in other words, like we know that 50 Shades of Grey came from Twilight. If there is not a single vampire in 50 Shades, what is Stephenie Meyer going to do?
But 50 Shades of Grey also wasn't, like, everyone knew that it was previously Twilight fan fiction, but the, like, official publisher wasn't saying that. Whereas,
but if they do say that, how does Rowling, for example, prove that her IP was stolen if everything was changed? Do you know what I mean? If nobody is named Harry and nobody has a Hagrid, and nobody, you know what I mean? Like, you can change everything enough, and sure, you stole my recipe, but I stole the recipe too. Diane Duane had her wizard school before J.K. Rowling.
Absolutely.
So we can then reverse the clock and say, okay, Joanne, here's where you overlap Diane Duane, and so on. I'm not saying, people can't have a grievance, but also look at your house of cards.
Yeah.
If they use the names and stuff, sure, sue the ass off them, but, they're probably not doing that.
It's interesting you brought up Star Wars as an example, because I was thinking of it earlier when we were talking about people who don't get edited. And I feel like George Lucas is kind of the quintessential example of when he got too famous to get edited, you can see the nosedive in quality of the stories.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anne Rice, unreadable. They became, you mean edited in terms of films for George?
Well, that was an example that Star Wars, as you can see, you can kind of see how as he got more powerful and famous, the movies devolve in quality. So it made me think of it, but
yeah.
But I do think that even the big name authors who don't get edited because of the power of their name, they probably should. That's
my point. It's an example of the quality being obviously worse when that switchover happens. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's nobody who doesn't need editing, because your brain is a wondrous thing and all of the story is in there, but you didn't write it down.
Yeah.
There will always be things you missed because you're a human being. So there is literally no writer on this planet who doesn't need to have somebody read their story. Mm-hmm. Will it always need, big changes? No. Will it need, did you change the character's name? Also, this sentence is 150 words without any punctuation. And maybe if there's a fight and it's 150 words, that makes sense. But it was, I don't know, a romantic moment. And now I don't know where people's legs are. You know what I mean? So everybody knows what they mean, but we all don't. So there's no such thing as a writer that doesn't need editing. I just got caught, what draws you to fan fiction? And I just wanted to answer really quick. Community. Yes. People, I really hope people who listen to this also understand that writing fanfic or reading fanfic is part of being a real writer, because you'll make real friends.
And you're doing real writing.
Yes. Oh, yes, that too. You're developing your skills like mad. You really, really are.
Yeah, no, it feels sometimes like the reason why fan fiction gets looked down on is kind of a symptom. Now I'm on a soapbox, kind of a symptom of capitalism, right? How dare you spend your time on something that you can't use to make money? Yeah. And now that you can use it to make money with these scrubbed versions getting published, people are like, oh, maybe fan fiction is okay to spend time on. And it's completely defeating the purpose.
Yes. Yeah. But a huge, huge part of being in a fandom, whether you write or not, is the community you'll find. And it's endlessly powerful. It's truly life-changing if you enter it and love it. Mm-hmm. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
And also, I do think that because there are some pretty toxic, or there can be toxic areas of fandom communities. So I think it's also important to find a good space.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No bout of the fandom wars. There's no win. There will never be a win, because people have time and they will use it to tell you you're wrong. So just go left and you'll find your people. Go right, you'll find your people. Go up, go down. I've been in variations of fandom for decades now, and I mostly avoid fandom wank because I go left, right, up, down, and I find the people who like what I like. Mm-hmm. And they empower me. They tremendously empower me. So go find your power.
It has been wonderful talking to you. Thank you again for joining us. Are there any current projects or anything that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Tiny bit of self-promotion. Reach out to me via Improbable Press if you ever want. I'm going to be starting up a little bit of training about answering a lot of these questions. If somebody listens to this, you more or less got a lot of the training, but there's details that, take a little bit more than an hour. So come talk to me on Atlin Merrick at improbablepress.com about getting yourself out there and published, because somebody did it before you can do it. But there's things you don't know, so let's talk about those.
Yeah.
Go to conventions. There's really great for learning about this stuff.
So you gave your email, but for people who want to follow you on the internet, keep up with what you're doing and what Improbable is doing, can you be found anywhere else?
I will say people, in my experience, are all dialing back their social media. A lot of my writers have vanished except for one place. And so right now, I'm sort of on Blue Sky, Atlin Merrick. I'm Atlin Merrick, no spaces everywhere. I'm on Tumblr, Atlin Merrick, and I'm on Substack vaguely. But otherwise, the website is, hey, you said a bunch of things at the end of that thing, but I didn't find you there. Email me.
Yeah. Social media is moving pretty fast in some pretty crazy directions right now. So
yeah. And a lot of people are just getting off. Mm-hmm. If somebody likes a writer or they like a publisher, a lot of them do newsletters. Sign up for their newsletters. It's easier on everybody. Mm-hmm. So I would say, look for that. I do a newsletter for Clandestine Press, My Mother Press. They own Improbable. Sign up for newsletters, and you learn a lot that way too about what publishers want and new books that are in your genre.
Fantastic. Well,
yeah.
Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
Come disagree with us. We're on Blue Sky and Instagram at FictionFansPod. You can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com or leave a comment on YouTube.
If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and follow us wherever your podcasts live.
We also have a Patreon where you can support us and find exclusive episodes and a lot of other nonsense.
Thanks again for listening, and may your villains always be defeated.
Bye.